All right. Well, we're just going to wait for Ariel to join us, and then we'll get started. Looks like she's just connecting. All right, everyone, of time zones. I want to thank you for joining us around the exciting opportunity to get to know our research special interest group. The purpose of these campfires and this fireside chat really is to provide our members an opportunity to be able to join us in conversation as we explore the different opportunities that INACSL has to offer. And it also gives you an opportunity to ask questions and get those questions that you've had and you weren't sure where to direct those questions to answered. So it's that opportunity to once again get some questions answered. We are planning to have these meetings every other month as we have. So they'll continue year round with our next meeting being in October. But again, I do want to thank you. I know this is either a busy start to this semester or quarter for you, or you're just coming to the end of a semester and quarter. So I thank you for that. These meetings will cover different special interest groups and different you can get involved with INACSL. There'll be a different committee and special interest group highlighted at each meeting. If you have any questions for our guests or for anybody else at our chat, please feel free to kind of jump into the chat. The Q&A is also being monitored. You can raise your hand. So we are monitoring the chat, the Q&A, and raise your hand to make sure that we can really timely address those questions and make sure we can get those answers for you. If for some reason you experience technical difficulties, and why wouldn't we on a Friday before a long weekend, but if that should happen, I do want you to go ahead and just kind of be aware that you can reach out to info@inacsl.org by email if there's any kind of audio or technical questions or issues that you're experiencing. I'm Nicola Contreras, the incoming chair of the membership committee, and happy to welcome you here once again. I have been involved with INACSL since 2019, mostly just as a member and attending conferences, but had the opportunity to join the membership committee a couple of years ago. I really found INACSL to be helpful for me because I feel like I'm about to share something that most of you can relate to. Back in 2019, I felt like I was handed a teaching assignment to do simulation and had to figure out how that all worked. So I say I'm self-taught up until I found out that there were these great I really do give all the credit to INACSL for really helping to shape my practice and helping me to really facilitate simulation in a way that it needed to be facilitated, knowing that I kind of went into it blind. So for me, the INACSL resources have just been priceless in the sense that they really have guided my practice over this period of time. And as I continue to meet with these special interest groups and all of you, it really helps me to also be a better simulationist at the same time. As I mentioned before, our topic today is really going to be getting to know your INACSL Research Special Interest Group. And this really is an informal time for us to really ask those questions that we've been wanting to know. So I don't want you to feel like this is per se like a meeting, more of a time for us to kind of ignite the fire and come together to really kind of learn and grow together. For those of you who are joining us, I would love if you could pop into the chat your name, where you're joining us from, and also just kind of tell us a little bit maybe about what you're hoping to get out of our time today. So I'd love to know about names, where you're joining from, and what you're hoping to get out of our time today. If there's a burning question or just some of this networking or better understanding of the special interest group. So I'm going to give everybody kind of an opportunity to just pop that information into the chat. Great. Wonderful, great. I know some of you may be listening as you're driving, so I appreciate if you're not able to pop something into the chat. Wonderful. Excellent. Great. Oh, it's so nice to see you all here.
I love all the different research topics too. Like we're all in this together. That's what this Research SIG is all about.
I love that. And we've got Canada and Australia representing today, so I love to see that. Before I go any further, Lori, would you mind introducing yourself? Lori is also a member of the membership committee and is kind of part of this fireside chat. And so I'd love to have Lori introduce herself real quick before we move on to our guests.
Yeah, I'm Lori Greer and have worked with, or had the privilege of working with Nicola on membership committee. I don't know how long we've been doing that, a few years, I think, but and then just I work here at Erlanger Health in Chattanooga, simulation coordinator, and been a part of INACSL probably since 2018, which is the year I think I certified. And it's just, as Nicola mentioned earlier, it's been a phenomenal experience just of networking and making, not only, meeting colleagues, but also making friends and having support from the people that I know through INACSL, and just being able to serve in different ways. And I think that's really the key to getting the most out of it, is just to find that small group that you want to connect with. And I think things begin to take off for you there. So glad to be here tonight, and so excited about all the people who are here, and really excited to hear from the Research SIG.
Yeah, and just looking at the chat, thank you, Lori. It looks like networking and just really getting an understanding of the special interest group is really where a lot of people are. So this is, I can't even, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. So I'm very excited personally for this meeting. So at this time, I'd love to have Beth and Kelly, if you would introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about, your current role, how you first heard and got involved with INACSL, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, well, thank you, Nicola, for giving us the opportunity to share about the Research SIG. It's a passion that Kelly and I both share. And so my name is Beth Rogers. I'm the past chair and one of the original founders of the Research SIG. I had the pleasure of forming this group with a wonderful colleague. Her name is Robin Lockhart from Midwestern State University. She's not able to be here today, but I would be really... it would be really inappropriate for me to not acknowledge her contribution, because it was so important to start in this group as well. But if I think back to how I got started in INACSL, I think it was really just during my PhD work. I investigated simulation as part of my PhD work, and I worked with Ashley Franklin, who is the current president, and she's really involved in INACSL, and I got the opportunity to join INACSL, present at INACSL, and I've really just been hooked ever since. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about the SIG today. It's definitely one of my passions, and such a great place that has given me the opportunity to meet some really amazing people.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you, Beth. Kelly?
Sure. My name is Kelly Foltz-Ramos. I'm the Director of Simulation and Innovation at the University of Buffalo School of Nursing and an assistant professor. I have been a member of INACSL since 2013, a consistent member since 2013, and have been part of the Research SIG since 2021 as just a regular member. And now I'm getting ready to take over some leadership duties, but I have been involved in research and simulation for about the past 12 years. So it was really important for me to find my people. And INACSL has my people, and the Research SIG really has my people.
And I suspect there's a lot of your people here today too, just from what I'm seeing in the chat. Can you tell us a little bit about your special interest group? I know the title says research, but there's so much more. And I'm wondering if you would share a little bit about your special interest group for those of us who may not be as familiar with what it is like this entails.
Yeah, so I can talk about this group for days, but I know it's a Friday afternoon and we probably all want to get towards, or we're looking forward to our holiday weekend. But, the Research SIG to me really kind of has three main purposes. We want to advance simulation research, obviously, by like addressing INACSL's research priorities. But like many of you have already mentioned, our main real focus is on building collaborations and supporting researchers no matter where they're at. And ultimately, that will hopefully lead us to promoting the healthcare SIM standards of best practice by informing them. And, one of the cool things about this group is we're not just talking about research, we're literally doing research together. So, that is our main goal, is to work on projects that advance our simulation learning, that really focus on INACSL's research priorities, INACSL's goals. Like, we are really driven by the vision that INACSL puts forward. And through that, we have really been able to build a lot of relationships. We have members from all over. Like, it's so fun. The SIG, we have people from Australia, Singapore, Canada, all over America that we have kind of brought together with the like mind of, we want to contribute to simulation research. And we do that by working on projects together. And so it's just really cool to me that when we meet, we're literally coming from all over the world, and the group really fosters a collaborative environment, where members can share ideas, research findings, best practices, and no matter where you're coming from, or what level of research you're at. Maybe you feel like, I haven't been to grad school, so I don't really know that much about research, but we have a place for you in the Research SIG. Like, whenever I started, I didn't know that much about research, but I can tell you that I've learned like so much from working with the members, and that provides support not only for me, but I really think we have a really good collegial working relationship, and we really try to provide resources and support for each other. We have some very experienced researchers in our group. We have some very novice researchers in our group. And really, it's that working with and together that we have been able to develop and refine each other's research skills. And everybody has a place, everybody can contribute. Like, you can either lead a project, you can eventually have a chance to lead the group, or be just a contributing member. And our goal is that we'll hopefully have a place for everybody. And it's just a really good way that we're hoping to create ways to just develop research networks, research communities, and just develop friendships, so that whenever you go to the conference, you feel like you have friends, and that you have resources for research projects that you're working on.
And Beth, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that component about you do not need to be a researcher to be a member of this special interest group. I can share with you that as somebody who started simulation from like 2 closets with a laptop, this was always something that was very overwhelming to me. So to think that I could be a part of this and kind of learn, and like, I don't have to lead a particular project, but I can be involved in a project as I'm learning. This is like really important information. So I'm excited about advancing the science of simulation. Not having a research background or experience isn't going to stop me from being a part of this special interest group.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the funnest things about our group, is we really learn about simulation together whenever we're talking about simulation research. Like the most recent project we've worked on, we've all learned, we talk about sim and we do things just a little bit differently, but that's okay. And like, so through this group, we've learned not only other people, but other practices, and learning simulation along the way. So it's a fun group. I really enjoy it. I look forward to our meetings every month. So
Kelly, is there anything you wanted to add?
I mean, I would echo everything that Beth has said. And for me, as someone who tends to be an introvert, really that networking and collaboration has been great, because it kind of almost is easier meeting people on Zoom. And then when we see each other in person, it's much less intimidating. So it's nice to have friends to look forward to when I think a lot of us probably work in simulation in small teams. So I don't usually go to conferences with anyone except for myself. So now I know a bunch of people.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Are you able to share a little bit about like some of the past or even current projects that your special interest group has been working on?
oh, I think you're muted, Kelly.
I can talk about a project. We kind of have split into groups to work on different projects. And the one that I'm currently working on, and Arlene, who's on the meeting, is also working on, is a virtual simulation to teach empathy. So it's a virtual simulation that we created, putting the learner in the shoes of a person who lives in an encampment and is experiencing poverty. And we are looking at the impact on empathy and attitude towards poverty. Our research has been funded by a grant from CanSim, a multi-site innovation research grant from CanSim, which is the Canadian Alliance of Nurse Educators Using Simulation. It's a 3-phase project. So we started with usability, and now we are actually in the last phase. We have already presented on the usability phase. We have a manuscript submitted for publication. And once we get this last set of data, we will be ready to disseminate our full results. But we have had students in the program from Texas, from Buffalo, from Canada. We've had nursing students, we've had nurse residents in their first year of working. So it's been a great project.
Oh, wow, that sounds really exciting. And I love that it's like multi-site and isn't just one specific like cohort of nursing students, but like like across the continuum just to see the impact of that simulation. How exciting.
Yeah, I think that's what's so fun about this group is like we started out as one working on a project and it's just led to branching out and branching out, and it's just really exciting to see where all it can grow to. And we hope that everyone on this group will join us and find a project that you can work on with a friend and keep the fire going because I think what's fun is, this group started out as like a, can we do it? And the original group just recently got our first project published in clinical simulation and nursing. So I'm really excited that not only are we doing this, but like Kelly talked about, their project is going to lead to multiple publications. We are really working towards improving simulation science and what we know about what works and what doesn't. And our first project that we worked on is, like I said, in clinical simulation and nursing. I think came out in the May issue. But we, like a big conversation right now is facilitator development and competency, developing facilitator competency. And, I know some of you shared that you're new to simulation in the chat, and it's really hard to figure out like, what do I need to prioritize learning whenever I'm new to simulation? And so the Research SIG used a research method called Q methodology to have research participants prioritize the different competencies that are on the facilitator competency rubric to provide a roadmap for new simulation facilitators of, if you can only focus on like a few things, what should you prioritize learning whenever you're in simulation or when you're facilitating simulation? And that project helped us inform the research community that all the participants agreed that psychological safety was super important, which makes sense. It's one thing to say like we should have psychologically safe environments, but it's another to how do you learn how to do that, right? So that's really important in facilitator training. And then the other topics that were prioritized were debriefing. And there was really kind of two views. Either it was important to learn a debriefing structure or framework, or learn how to help learners learn essentially during debriefing. And so that project has hopefully been a support to INACSL members that are planning to to help bring in new facilitators this fall in their simulation programs. That, you know, if you get to cover nothing else, maybe you cover psychological safety and debriefing with your new facilitators. And after that project, we started a new project. We're always trying to kind of address what's a big concern in simulation. And right now we have a survey that we would love for everybody to take that is about asking nurse educators to tell us how they're using sim to evaluate learners and determine competency. Because right now we're all kind of working on this problem, and it would be really helpful to know what others are doing, how they're doing it. In that survey, we asked for barriers and facilitators so that we can hopefully help the simulation community as we're all working towards evaluating our learners' competency so that we can really find best practice. And I really think all of these projects, the ones Kelly described to, really are just working towards really informing the standards, as well as finding out and helping the INACSL members with what they need most. And so this current survey is really almost like a needs assessment that we hope will help INACSL figure out how best to help its members deal with evaluating learners and determining competency. So not only will it be an INACSL needs assessment, but hopefully we will also the survey provides a needs assessment to the participant, because we're always, like, all of our research projects are either with the student, the facilitator, or with INACSL in mind. So I hope those examples show that we really are working hard to meet INACSL's needs.
So exciting. Just as a review, and really, May is the journal issue where we're finding that information that you shared about facilitator prioritization in terms of development. So it's the May issue?
Yes.
Okay. My second question, and then I've got a couple from the chat, is where can we access this survey to be able to give like our information for the needs assessment?
I will put the link in the chat, and I can put a study flyer in the chat as well. If you want to reach out to me or any member of the research team, we can always answer more questions. But I will share the link and the flyer in the chat.
Great, thank you. And I also wanted to say, Suzanne, who's also joining us, who is part of the special interest group, shared also that the ability to present together, collaborate for survey distribution together, additional benefits. And I also loved, Suzanne, that your use of the word mentoring. I mean, I think that's incredibly important because we all have to start somewhere, and some of us start with a little more knowledge than others, but it's so great to think about a special interest group within that special interest group, that mentoring opportunity to kind of learn from and with, but also to then share knowledge with others. Now, Rose asked in the question, a question which I love because this is most definitely was one of my questions for later, is how would you get involved with a research project?
You want me to take
Like,
it?
how would you get involved? Yeah, Kelly, if you don't mind, thank you.
Okay. So we're planning to have a meeting in the fall, but our research, the structure of our Research SIG is changing a little bit, only because, like Beth said, we kind of had split up into different groups and we're meeting monthly, but not together as a large group. So moving forward, we will meet as a large group quarterly. And at those quarterly meetings, that will be kind of like the matchmaking when we find people who have the same interests and can then start a project together. Continue to meet quarterly to get updates on those projects, but then those groups themselves will meet more frequently. So really it's up to the members how much they want to get involved, if they have enough time to do a project, or if they just want to attend the quarterly meetings. There's really, like Beth said, there's a place for everyone.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. Rose, did that help to answer your question? Great. Love that. So now I'm going to kind of ask how this special interest group has really kind of impacted your own practice. And I know you've both kind of shared a little bit about that in terms of how you've gotten involved and where you were on your journey. But can you share a little bit about like how being a part of this special interest group has really kind of shaped or changed your own practice?
I could start. I think that I could talk about this for hours, to be quite honest. Like Suzanne mentioned, it's not just the research, it's, also getting the chance to present together and learn together. Like, I have felt mentored, and it's also been kind of cool to see that I can mentor others, even though I'm kind of newer in research or simulation research. So I think it's just really given me confidence that I didn't have, from just learning about sim in school and learning about sim research. It's really just been a real personal growth as well as professional growth. I can tell you that I absolutely adore the people that I work with in these groups, and I look forward to every single meeting. I can't say that about every meeting that I go to, but this group really invigorates me and keeps my passion for simulation research going. And I think it, like I said, it's personal and professional. Like, I just used the research I talked about that was published in ClinSim. Like, I worked with a new faculty member who came to our simulation course just this fall. And I used the knowledge that we got from that research study to help prioritize what I talked to her about, so that I didn't overwhelm her on the first day as she was learning to facilitate sim in a new course. And I could see the impact. And so I really love this group. Like I said, I could talk about it for hours, but I'll give Kelly the opportunity to tell what she has learned from the group too.
For me, I was so used to doing research just in my own lab on my students. I've started now not only collaborating with the people who are in the Research SIG, but almost all of my projects and my grant proposals are multi-site now. So it really has just made me feel more comfortable collaborating with people from different institutions, and what we end up with is much better because of that.
I really love that point about how you're able to collaborate, not just within your group, but like extend beyond like the people you're used to working with, the people you're most comfortable with. And so I think that's an amazing component of this, and that ability to network and really kind of touch a number of different areas with the projects that you're doing. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
how do you, well, I was going to say, my next question you've already answered about, like, you know, being a part of this, how you've impacted nursing education. And I have to say, I'm absolutely thrilled to hear about this study and this information that you shared in that May Clin Sim edition about where to focus for facilitator development. And I think this is something that we kind of maybe are all really challenged to do when we've got new sim educators, new faculty coming into the area with varying levels or confidence or competence in simulation. So the fact that the facilitator competency rubric was a part of that in terms of prioritizing where to focus, I absolutely like appreciate that. I know that's like, I wrote it down as my next to-do list. So that's my like weekend reading right there. And I feel like I'm not going to be alone on that one. I'm curious, as you've kind of navigated through your journey through simulation, what resources in INACSL have you found to be the most helpful? So if you had to think about, you know, compared to where you started in today, what resources have you found to be the most helpful in kind of growing you to be like the simulationist that you are today?
I can start with that. I think INACSL is a great resource. I've found it super helpful for collaborating. I've already kind of hit on that, but recently I've just really come to appreciate the standards. Like whenever I first learned about them, I didn't dive very deep into the information, but as we have started talking about competency-based assessments in SIM, I find the standards so very helpful in advocating for making sure that we're always using the best practice, as well as focusing on the learner, especially as we talk about potentially creating some like high stakes learner assessments. I think it has really been a way for me to advocate for SIM as well as the learner. And it's not just my opinion. I have backup, you know, and that this is really how it's supposed to be done. And so I really value the SIM standards.
I feel like I have those as a favorite on my computer as well. I refer to them at least once a week. But for me, the first thing that I did that really made an impact on me in INACSL was I was a research fellow. I think it was in 2018. And that really kind of got me started. I really appreciated that. I had an assigned mentor and people who I continue to speak with. So that was a great experience for me. I have been going to the conference every year. I think that there has not been a single conference where I haven't come back and immediately made a change because of something that I saw. So I think that those are huge. The journal, I mean, it's such an honor to have been published in that. It's very exciting, but something that I also follow regularly.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And I know for some of us who don't always get to the conference, I just want to put a shameless plug in for just that extension. That virtual extension really does provide kind of like an overview of some of the topics. Not everything is covered, but it certainly provides an opportunity for some continuing education if for some reason you weren't able to make it to the conference. But yeah, that conference for networking has just been amazing. I want to thank Beth for popping in the article, the journal article, into the chat. So we've got that there. Suzanne's also shared some information about additional studies, which I think is great, or projects. And then I wanted to thank Kelly Rosler for sharing some opportunities for funding, especially for those of us who have kind of been struggling with like, so how would we fund a project if we were interested? And that kind of leads me to my next question. And really it's about how would I get started in like quality improvement or research as somebody who may not be experienced in that. If I see something and I feel like this need to look at quality improvement, like where would you suggest I get started, or what resources might you kind of suggest I look into?
I mean, my first answer is always the standard, right? That's always the first go-to, is see if it's addressed in the standard, see what's already known about your topic. And then, you know, I think what I've learned the most about this Research SIG is to reach out and make a connection with someone who's really interested in the topic, because I find that I like Kelly mentioned, she's an introvert. I'm actually a natural introvert too. And the thought of like reaching out to someone that I read their article with before terrified me. But now that I see that, you know, we're all here to help, we're all here to learn. I am certain that if that person that you have read their literature, you like what they do, you like what they have done and research in the past, will be more than willing to help out if needed, or point you to someone who can help if they aren't able to help at the time. Just because, you know, I think, like Kelly mentioned, doing research alone, you're not going to get the best answer. Like you can definitely do research by yourself, but what we have learned in the Research SIG is doing it together brings better answers, better research. So I would encourage you, as a new or novice researcher, to reach out and make a connection. If that person doesn't respond, keep trying until you find someone who can, just because when you have someone by your side, it's a lot easier to like take those steps forward, and do research when you may not feel super comfortable, and they will have resources that you may not know about. So I think that would be my advice.
And I would say join the Research SIG.
Sounds like a great plan. Yeah, I think that's really an important point. So many of us are worried about, like, you see a name in a journal article, you think they can't possibly have time or be interested in what I'm thinking about. And it's kind of comforting to know that, like, we're kind of all here for the same reason. And so eventually you will come across somebody who has the similar interests. And I think, Kelly, you've shared it a number of times, in that, like, there are shared interests within the special interest group where perhaps you can join up, team up together, and look at pursuing that project, that quality improvement, that research, and kind of tap into the knowledge and resources that to the table, which is kind of nice. Beth, I think it's really powerful when you talk about, like, doing research alone can be so challenging, and just the benefits of, like, having additional team members. And so I think, like, if nothing else, I'm going to walk away from today's, like, fireside chat remembering that I'm not alone, and, like, reaching out is a good thing. Like, it's a positive and a good thing. So I really want to thank you for sharing those points. I'm really curious, what are you reading now? So I know we all have our guilty little pleasures of, like, looking at specific articles, or there's something that's piquing our curiosity. As busy as we are, we still find the time to, like, look at something new. I'm wondering if you would share a little bit about, like, what are you reading now? What's kind of exciting to you? What have you been following in simulation that you're excited about?
Well, I have, over the past year, started working a lot in augmented and virtual reality simulation. So really my thing right now is investigating the use of artificial intelligence in simulation. I think it's going to make a huge impact on what we do and make it so much better. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I have lots of interest always, but I think one article that really piqued my interest recently was by Lisa Marie Wands, who is on this call, as well as she wrote an article with Susie Caudron Edgren and Elizabeth Wellsbeed about psychological safety and making sure SIM is a safe environment, and that we're not putting students into too difficult of simulations too quickly. That article definitely spoke to me in my research and my practice, as we talk about what should students be able to do. You know, I think there's some in like in that article, it talked about kind of intentional complexity scaffolding too prematurely, but I think we might have some unintentional premature scaffolding of complexity in SIM that can negatively impact learning outcomes. And so that article definitely piqued my interest and has kind of guided some of the research that I am doing outside the Research SIG right now.
Both really hot topics when we think about outcomes and we think about like really preparing nurses and other healthcare professions for practice and ongoing competency assessment, which is also important long after like they have left us. Like, how are we assuring, establishing, and continuing to assess competency with simulation in a clinical setting too? So I think this is like, these are really exciting topics. Kristen shared a little bit about a topic she's excited about, which is rapid cycle deliberate practice and skill retention with new graduate nurses, which I think is such an exciting topic too, as somebody who like works with our capstone students and the fears they have about not being prepared, and just kind of this opportunity to kind of look at the skill retention. So this is great. I love that. I'm kind of curious about, for those of you who are attending, what are you looking at? Like, what are you excited about? What are you reading now? As we're sitting around the campfire chatting, I'm curious, like Kristen shared a little bit about what she's excited about. What are, for those of you who are also joining us, would you mind popping in the chat, like what you're excited about? What's kind of been a topic you've been following or something you've been curious about? I feel like as we kind of have an opportunity to think like minds and areas of similar interests, I suspect we're going to find that amongst this group, there may be others who kind of share our interests too. Oh, reducing performance anxiety and managing it, Rachel. Yeah. Yeah, I love this. I know Suzanne has shared a little bit about her interests too. I'm always surprised, and I don't know why I am, when I'm on like a meeting like this and I feel like I'm trying to solve a problem that is only unique to me. And I think what you have shared really allows me to realize that there are people out there who are trying to solve these problems, and it would be nice to be a part of the solution. So I love this opportunity with a special interest group to be able to do that. Standardized patients and participants, absolutely. Multi-patient simulations, facilitator professional development, interprofessional debriefing. I can share with you that in the state of Washington, they've become very specific about, for 2-to-1 clinical replacement simulation, what our facilitators are required to know. They're required to be certified. And there's a very distinctive role between what they can do and what operations is looking like. So I know for me, facilitator development is something that's huge in our organization. Creative professional development ideas for new Sim Center staff. I love it. Great. We're making connections today on a Friday afternoon, making connections. I love it. The last question that I have for you is kind of a question that I know is probably one where everybody's always like, oh, this is a hard one to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Out of, in terms of what you've been able to accomplish as being a part of this special interest group, about really being a part of this particular special interest group.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear what you said.
Your question kind of broke up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was either that or it sounded great in here and not so great out here. But I guess my question for you is like, what are you most proud of in terms of what you've been able to accomplish as part of the special interest group?
I think I'm just most proud of seeing the connections that are being made. Like, this went from a conversation at a virtual sim as, can we do this? Can we start this? To now we have about 15 members who consistently come to one project. And I think there's, Kelly, is there like 10 on yours or 8?
Around 8, yeah.
8, yeah. So we've just kind of grown organically throughout time, to provide more opportunities for connections. And I'm really excited to see what Kelly's gonna do with like changing up our model to where we still have those regular connections with both groups. I think that Kelly's gonna do a great job bringing our Research SIG even further, and I don't know, I think I'm just really proud to see the accomplishments of the group, know that I contributed and had the opportunity to lead, and I'm so excited to see Kelly get the opportunity to take over the torch.
And I'm excited for you to continue participating.
I love that.
I'll never leave. You can't get rid of me.
For me, it's a little bit more personal, but my first external grant funding was the CanSim grant. And even though it was a small one, since then I've gotten over $1 million. So starting out with a grant that I wrote with the special interest group really kind of meant a lot to me.
Oh, I love that, and congratulations. Absolutely love that. Well, at this time, I do want to kind of pull over and see if there's any questions. We've kind of had an opportunity to chat, but for those of you attending around our campfire, any questions that you have specifically or anything that you're curious about? Yeah, Rose, by all means.
It's kind of a curiosity, but it's a question. And for me personally, it really irritates me that a lot of places, I just work in education, so I don't work in a hospital, but there's a belief that any person can facilitate simulation. And that really gets my blood boiling, because if you look at all the standards and they talk about the facilitator, they're always talking about becoming the facilitator being educated and not just like reading a manual. So I just want to make that comment. But the other thing is, I don't know how this happens. Do people not take simulation seriously? And they think anybody can facilitate this? I mean, we're all here because we're learners and we're educating ourselves and have been educated for a while. So nobody has to answer it, or you can answer it, but it just really irritates me to no end that a lot of people who are making the decisions about simulation think that any person can facilitate. So does anybody have any thoughts on this?
I support your irritation. I think that you're not wrong in saying that, sim facilitation requires specific skills. You could even point people to the facilitator competency rubric. You can point people to the facilitation standard. The fact that we have standards of simulation, I do think that part of it is growing of simulation and understanding the standards, that not everybody realize, because sim started out as we got this mannequin, people figure it out, and so I think because that's the way it started, it's the assumption is we can all just figure it out, and we can, right? We're nurses, we're smart, we're nurse educators, we can figure it out. But it's important to say that we need to do it the right way. We need to do it in a safe way, and that's where the facilitator competencies as well as the standards help really protect the learner from those experiences where they create scars and training scars, and they're really difficult to recover from. So, I support you in defending that, sim facilitation is specific skill that you need to learn and grow and develop. That doesn't mean that, you know, it's exclusive. If someone wants to learn, we should let them learn, right? But there's definitely a way to do it well.
I would share, Rose, that what has helped me, because I don't know if it's because my educators are amazing and make it look easy, they just assume everyone can do it, is like we started to kind of pull and post the INACSL like endorsement kind of criteria, because this is something we're looking at, and it became pretty clear that it isn't just anybody who can facilitate SIM, because there were these expectations, additional information. Kelly put it in there too, the endorsement component. Like it really does highlight the skill set and competencies. I hate to use that word, but that's the word I'm going to use, of like our facilitators and supporting our learner outcomes, and then thus supporting our patient outcomes.
We've also started to make use of ISEP, the education from INACSL for those people who are working in SIM all the time, but I just purchased 10 seats for the cornerstones for those who might just come in and facilitate, but not have any other involvement. So I think that there's education that's out there that is quality and follows the standards because it's from INACSL. That's virtual, asynchronous, easy for everyone to do.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much. Other questions or comments? Sarah kind of shared that we need to have a plan if instructors are not a match for SIM. Someone who couldn't take directive that is no longer allowed in the SIM suite. And I think to Beth's point, we invite you to get involved, but if it isn't going to be a match, if there's some difficulty operationalizing these best practices, is how do we support these educators in educating perhaps in a different forum? Take what you know from SIM and maybe apply it in a didactic or a clinical setting. So I like that idea, Sarah, of kind of having a plan. I think that's really important.
I think, you know, one of my big, I don't know, hills to stand on too is the fact that, you know, once you learn SIM, you can bring it into the classroom, you can bring it into clinical. Like, I think SIM is a great place to learn how best to facilitate learning, because you already know what's going to happen. You already know what the scenario is. But man, once you learn SIM, like bring it into the classroom, bring it into clinical, like, don't let SIM be a silo, right? Like we have to protect against that. But I think, you know, it's really important that we do SIM well, facilitate SIM well, but then use it in other places, because our standards could definitely apply to the classroom and clinical too.
It's not a place, it's a teaching strategy, is what somebody once told me. Is it's not a location. SIM is not a location, it's a teaching strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that we have struggled with, because in New York State, we just passed the law in November of last year to allow for 1/3 of simulation to count as clinical time. A lot of the people who are against it are ones who are saying that we're replacing clinical with simulation, whereas what the law is saying, what we're trying to convey, is that simulation is clinical education. It's not a replacement. It is clinical education. And unfortunately, we're giving these standards to people who are facilitating in SIM, but what has there been done for people who are in clinical? I mean, maybe their level of education, but they don't have standards. They don't have specialized training. So I think it's really eye-opening.
I will tell you, I was very fortunate to be a part of an academic institution where Pearl's debriefing was part of like, and the pre-brief and facilitation were part of like the clinical onboarding for clinical faculty, understanding how in your pre-brief you set that safe container. And then your post-conference really is a debrief at this point of kind of sharing a little bit of, I saw like just really the advocacy inquiry debriefing methods within the Pearl's debriefing framework as part of like clinical post-conference. It was amazing to see. If only it was like best practice in other places in those types of settings. Well, I just want to thank our guests so much for sharing with us about your special interest group. I have to say, absolutely enjoyed hearing about the amazing things that the Research Special Interest Group are doing, and also just your willingness to really partner with those who are interested in advancing simulation by joining the Special Interest Group. I think it's really exciting. And I love that you also shared some of what you're working on now and some of what you have worked on. That's really helped to guide our practice that we may not even be aware of. Like, we are here because of the things that are being done within our special interest groups. So I do want to say thank you. I want to thank all of you for attending on a Friday afternoon or evening. I really appreciate it, especially on this side of a long weekend and this time in your quarter or semester. Our next Fireside Chat will be in October. We are always open to hearing a little bit about if there's a specific topic that you're interested in hearing about, or a specific INACSL resource that you are curious about. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any other questions. I want to just thank you all for your time. Wish you a great long weekend for those of you that have a long weekend, and just a great weekend in general for everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting around the fireside and chatting with you all today. Beth and Kelly, thank you. The rest of you, thank you for being so willing to share your resources, things that have worked for you, and also like your questions and concerns and challenges. I think it's great when we can all come together to be able to like be in a place where we can have these conversations and kind of look at like how we move this conversation forward from here. So everybody have a wonderful weekend. It is, again, top of the hour. So take care, everyone. Have a great Friday or whatever day you should find yourself on today. Bye, everyone. Thank you again.